moon sign is always given much more importance in Vedic astrology because it is associated with the subconscious mind. A subconscious mind represents our psyche, and 90% of the brain work that we do or the life we live, 90% is controlled by the subconscious mind. When someone says that they are Aries, they could either be Aswini Aries, they could either be Bharini Aries, or they could be Kritika Aries. So this will explain how Vedic astrology calculation differs slightly from the tropical one, and why some people are like shocked when they read Vedic astrology because the dates are kind of different. Now, each nakshatra has been associated with a specific Shakti and a Vedic deity or Vedic god or goddesses, and it is observed that similar life patterns occurs within the natives. First of all, I'd like to thank Sangam Talks for inviting me onto their platform and my book, that is A Millennial's Guide to the 27 Nakshatras. And as Tanya mentioned, I am a fashion design graduate from LIFT Mumbai, and I have been working in the apparel industry for a few years now. And right now, I'm doing my postgraduate from London College of Fashion. And I've also been pursuing Vedic astrology for 8 years now. It's been my passion. And over the years, I realized that the perception that astrology has is very different from the reality. Most people think that astrology is all about what they study in newspapers or magazines, the predictions about zodiac signs. But that is the most basic aspect of what this subject really has to offer. That is based on the Western astrology or the tropical system, which is very sunshine oriented. So, for example, if we say somebody is born in December, so that person might be a Sagittarius or Capricorn. And if they're born in between, so they would be in the cusp of Sagittarius or Capricorn. But that's a very limited viewpoint because sometimes people find someone who's also Sagittarius, but they might not resonate with that. And here, if we consider nakshatras, nakshatras are the finer divisions of the zodiac sign. So in Vedic astrology, we take the 12 zodiac signs and divide it further and further to study different aspects. So when we have nakshatras, they are 27 parts of the 360 degrees of the moon's orbit. And instead of saying that, I am Sagittarius or Capricorn, if you go for nakshatras, you will get a much more detailed viewpoint. For example, how we have psychological tests now, like Myers-Briggs, MBTI, where we say that we are introverts or INTJs or ESTPs. Similarly, nakshatras can really get into the psyche and explain your personality in great detail. And it has also been seen that our subject, Vedic astrology, which is Indian-based astrological system, is gaining a lot of popularity worldwide, owing to its depth and its nuances, which are much finer than the tropical system, the pre-existing system. So let's get into it. So here we'll start with the origin of Vedic astrology. So Vedic astrology is a part of the Vedanga Jyotish, which was one of the earliest texts of astronomy within Vedas. So before astrology came into picture, it started with astronomy and the science of timekeeping. So the sun, moon, and stars were used for timekeeping. And it has been noticed that over time, when sun is at a particular position and moon is at a particular position during the birth, the person inherits a certain set of personality traits and his life unfolds accordingly. For example, what exactly is sunshine is that the earth revolves around the sun. But when a person is born, the relative position of sun with respect to the constellation that it seems to be in from the earth is what we call as the sunshine. Similarly, when the moon takes 27 days around the earth, and those 27 days, each day, moon is in a different lunar mansion or a different position, and those positions are called as nakshatras. And nakshatras are also part of the bigger constellation, that zodiac signs, and that is what we call as the moon sign. And moon sign is always given much more importance in Vedic astrology because it is associated with the subconscious mind. A subconscious mind represents our psyche, And 90% of the brain work that we do or the life we live, 90% is controlled by the subconscious mind, and 10% is the conscious mind or the logical mind. So when we say sun sign, so sun is represented by logic. So that is the logical mind. But the moon is the subconscious mind. It carries the samskaras from your past lives. It carries all the memories that you have stored since your birth. So it is a better perspective to study your moon sign. So all the dasha systems, everything that is created, the most popular part of Vedic astrology is all based on moon signs and moon nakshatra. The nakshatra that you are born in, the moon nakshatra is also known as the Janma nakshatra. And we see a great depth in Vedic astrology, which is why it is so famous now, why it is getting revived now, and why so many people are studying it. For example, in Vedic astrology, we don't use the term planets because sometimes people think that when we talk about astrology, sun and moon are also planets. They are not. Sun and moon are grahas. So we popularly use the term navgrahas, but navgrahas are not 9 planets. What graha literally means is the one thing that grabs. Graha means to grab, grahan, to grab, or something that influences you, that influences your mind, your body, and your life. And they give you the results based on your past life karmas and your samskaras. For example, we have a picture of Rahu here. It is a statue. And Rahu is a graha. But Rahu is not a physical entity, it is a mathematical point in the sky. And there's a very interesting story behind this. So Rahu was actually the beheaded part of the demon Swarabhanu. So Swarabhanu was part of Asuras, and this story is linked with the Samudra Manthan part. So when there was Samudra Manthan, the churning of the cosmic ocean, it was um, done to get more treasures out of the cosmic ocean. And one of the treasures was Amrit, that was the nectar of immortality. And there was a war between Devas and Asuras to who would get this, because it was a very devoted thing. Everybody wanted to have the Amrit. And Vishnu, he took form of Mohini, a beautiful maiden, to lure the Asuras, to distract them and give the Amrit to Devas. So all the Devas got the Amrit. Whereas there was a smart Asur or Asura known as Swarabhanu who disguised himself as a Deva, and he took part in the uh, consumption of the Amrit, which is why uh, he became immortal just like the Devas. But this deception that was done by Swarabhanu was reported by Surya and Chandra. Sun and moon were supposedly to be gods in the Vedic system, and they complained to Vishnu that, see, this is what has happened. Swarabhanu has tricked us and he has consumed the Amrit. So Vishnu beheaded Swarabhanu, and that after the beheading process, there was a severed body, that was Ketu, and the cut head, the head part was cut, and the head was known as Rahu. So the Rahu is also known as the north node, and Ketu is known as the south node. But if we see them in the sky, they are not physical bodies, they're not physical heavenly bodies, they're mathematical points in the sky. So Rahu is the north node of the moon, and Ketu is the south node, and these are the points where the eclipse occurs. Now, if you see the statue with Rahu, Rahu represents Amavasya or the new moon. And you would see that he's holding two crescent moons on the side. And these two crescent moons show the lunar cycle. Like if this is the new moon, that is the Rahu point, then we have the waxing crescent and the one waning crescent. It shows that our ancient seers, our sages were aware of the fact that Rahu and Ketu were mathematical points in the sky. So astrology actually bridges a lot of complex subjects together. It brings in the concept of timekeeping, it brings in the concept of astronomy, and sometimes during predictions and remedies, we also use Ayurveda, we use mantras, we also take references of a lot of Vedic stories. So it's a very deep subject, which is why everyone wants to read it now, especially international astrologers. They are going back to the older texts, they're decoding them and bringing it for them or modern audiences for them to relate and appreciate what a wonderful subject it is. So most Vedic astrologers go for some classics. which are given by our renowned ancient seers or sages like Brihat Parasara Hora Sastra by sage Maharshi Parashara. We have Vrigu Samhita by sage Vrigu, and we have Jaimini Sutras by sage Jaimini. So what makes Vedic astrology different? In the Vedic system, the 12 constellations or the zodiac signs are divided into 27 lunar mansions. So here we have the circle which represents the 12 zodiac sign, and the next circle represents the rulers of the nakshatras, and the last circle shows the nakshatras. So we can see that when we divide 12 zodiac signs into 27 parts, there will never be equal division. So approximately 2.5 nakshatra fall in each Aries sign. So when someone says that they are Aries, they could either be Aswini Aries, they could either be Bharini Aries, or they could be Kritika Aries. So you see so many variation within one zodiac sign, which shows how nuanced it can be. And on top of that, if we go further dividing the nakshatras, each nakshatra is divided into 4 padas. So a person with Ashwini Pada 4 will be different from someone who is Ashwini Pada 3. So that is the amount of depth that Vedic astrology has to offer. And there are also multiple divisional charts for every aspect of life. Now, this brings me to the next important point, that when twins are born, why are they different? This is a question that is often asked to astrologers, that if astrology is real, then twins, why are twins different? Why are the personalities different? Why do they live different lives sometimes? And the answer to this is the divisional charts. So when when twins are born, they're not born exactly at the same time. There's a difference of a second or a few seconds or a few minutes, and that decides the difference in their life. So we have divisional charts. We not only divide 12 zodiac signs into 27 nakshatras, but we go on dividing them further and further to create divisional charts. Like for the example of Sastyamsa chart, that is the D60 chart, you take the zodiac sign of 30 degrees and further divide it into 60 parts. So the 360 degrees are divided further into 60 parts, and each division, each of that 160 part is known as Sastyamsa. And because of that, the D60 chart is different for twins, and so is few more divisional charts. So through divisional charts, you can understand why twins have different lives. Why do they act differently? Why do they have different personalities? Therefore, people born on the same day can be very different depending on the divisional charts, depending on the subtle differences that they have in their astrological charts. They can also be different depending on Desh, Kal, and Patra. Desh is the country, Kal is the time that they are born in, and Patra is the surroundings. So therefore, it is a very deep subject, and it's sad that it has been portrayed very superficially so far. But I'm really glad that a lot of youngsters are taking interest in this subject, and they're doing research and bringing out the intricacies, showing how beautiful this subject truly is. Now let's go to the sidereal and tropical calculation. So this will explain how Vedic astrology calculation differs slightly from the tropical one, and why some people are like shocked when they read Vedic astrology, because the dates are kind of different. So we see that, let's not go into too much depth because this is very complex, but we will see that in the diagrams, the starting point for sidereal and tropical calculation is different. And if we see the dates, this is the tropical date chart and this is the sidereal date chart. So someone who was born in Aries on 15th April might be Aries in the tropical and the sidereal, but someone who's born on, let's say, 21st April, 21st March, he might be a tropical Aries, but in the sidereal, he'll become a Piscean. So it goes to Pisces sun. So this is what happens when people move from Western or tropical to sidereal calculation, is that they have a bit of an identity crisis, because a lot of people associate deeply with the zodiac signs only to discover that there might be something different in a different system of calculation. Now let's come back to nakshatras. So the relevance of nakshatras. So Nakshatras, as we discussed earlier, were used for timekeeping and they were used as time stamps. So in Mahabharata, we have reference of the sky and the transit of nakshatra. For example, they would describe that in the day 2 war of Mahabharata, we have moon in Tritiya Tithi and the nakshatra is, let's say, Chitra. So this has helped in timekeeping because now some researchers are also trying to find out which date it really happened and try to match the skies and correct the ecliptic points to see when exactly this thing had happened. So this is how nakshatras help in timekeeping. The Hindu months were named after nakshatras. So this is another interesting part how when we say that the month is Vaishak month, the name Vaishak has come from Vishaka Nakshatra. And during the Vaishak month, the moon, there will be full moon in the Vishaka Nakshatra. So depending on the nakshatra where full moon occurs, the name of months are given. So in Bhadra month, which is derived from Purva Bhadrapada and Uttara Bhadrapada Nakshatra, the moon will be, there will be full moon around this nakshatras. So this is how timekeeping and naming of months were also done. Sometimes nakshatras were also used for giving names to the children because that would be the best name for them. And then we have the prediction of personal qualities. For example, the case of Lord Ram. So in Ramayana, there was reference of the nakshatra that he was born in, and he was born in the Punarvasu nakshatra. And there's another interesting part here is that he was born in the lineage of Suryavanshi. He was a Suryavanshi king, and the nakshatra that he was born in, that is Punarvasu, was lauded by Aditi. And Aditi is also the mother of sun gods or Adityas. So she is the Kula Devi of Suryavanshi kings. So you can see that the nakshatra that he was born in has strong relation with his lineage, with his ancestors, and therefore has a strong impact in his life. Now, each nakshatra has been associated with a specific Shakti and a Vedic deity or Vedic god or goddesses, and it is observed that similar life patterns occurs within the natives. So, it has been observed that the stories that we often hear about, like stories of Surya Dev, stories of Sunny Dev, they are also recurring in the lives of human beings depending on their charts. And especially in terms of nakshatras, it is very, very predominant. We'll discuss this further in our PPT. Now, the Vedic stories that are associated with nakshatras show the life patterns that happens within the human beings. Now, one might ask that why does this happen? What is the logic behind it? What is the mechanism behind it? So all grahas were anthropomorphized and given human attributes. So all grahas, like we have sun god, is known as Surya or Aditya, and he has been given a set of human attributes. For example, like we say that sun is very disciplined; it always comes on time. So people with strong sun, they will be always on time, and they will depict qualities that Surya Dev has. And they have been anthropomorphized to show that and in Hindu or Vedic philosophy, we don't distinguish between matter and the spirit. We always say that even the living beings have spirits and even the non-living beings have spirit. Like the heavenly bodies are just not physical entities, they are also imparting some spirituality into the lives of human beings. So what is present within the universe is also symbolically present within the human body, going to the macrocosm and macrocosm analogy. For example, the Mula Nakshatra is located at the galactic center of the universe where a black hole lies. And a black hole shows that there's a lot of magnetism within it. So people who are born in Mula Nakshatra, they are also similar to this mechanism in the sense that they have a lot of magnetism. They pull in energy, they're very receptive, which makes them also very intelligent. So what we see outside is not very different from what we are within. And everything is interconnected. Everything is connected when it comes to Vedic astrology. And astrologers globally are studying them for understanding nakshatras. Now, there are Vedic stories that are associated with deities, and this was what makes the study of nakshatra so interesting because Now you can go back to the stories that we heard as a children about the Vedic gods and goddesses and link them with the predictions. For example, if we take the Bharini Nakshatra, the ruling deity is Yama. And Yama, if we see in the chart here, the chart of Surya Vansh and Chandra Vansh, so he was the son of Surya Devata. And it is also seen that sun is exalted in the sign of Aries, where the Bharini Nakshatra lies. So there is strong interlink between the stories, the deities, and the nakshatra. So we are connecting the dots and we are making a prediction. Another example to show how everything is connected and how nakshatras can interlink a lot of complex subjects together is Revati Nakshatra. So Revati was also the name of a princess who married Balram. And there was a concept of time travel here because the yug that she was born in, she could not find a suitable life partner. So Princess Revati and her father, they time traveled through different dimensions to find her husband. And it was predicted that her husband would be Balram, will be born on Earth in a different yuga. And she eventually met him. And because she was from a different dimension, so she was in a different body size or different body form, and he used his plow or his weapon to bring her back to the human size that that yuga people had, and she eventually married him. And interestingly, the Vedic god that is associated with Revati Nakshatra is Pushan, who's one of the Adityas or Surya Devs, and he's also a psychopomp. So psychopomp is somebody who conducts soul from one dimension to other. So once somebody has passed away or they have left their bodies, the soul sometimes transmigrates from one dimension to other. At least that is the belief that there is in Vedic astrology. And Pushan conducts soul from one dimension to other. And if we see the Roman god Mercury, Mercury is also associated as the ruling lord of Revati Nakshatra. If we see the previous table, we have Revati, and the Vimshotri lord is Mercury, and the ruling lord is Pushan. So Mercury was a Roman god who is a liminal deity, and liminal deity is somebody who is a psychopomp again and conducts soul from one realm to other. It goes on to show how multiple stories, esoteric stories that exist globally are interconnected with the constellations or stars. In fact, it has also been researched now that a lot of ancient monuments like the pyramids of Egypt or the Stonehenge were made with respect to the position of stars and constellation with nakshatras again. For example, the pyramid was done with respect to the Betelgeuse nakshatra that lies in Gemini. So it goes on to show that ancient civilization were aware of the fact that there's something external which controls the life on Earth. And as we discussed before, that they never saw the difference that if something is not there on Earth, if that could also influence us. It is what we see outside and what is there inside is not different. They're all interconnected. So my book, that is a Millennial's Guide to 27 Nakshatras, is for the modern audiences, and it's a beginner-friendly book and an introduction to nakshatras. And they give deep insight into the human psyche or the samskaras. So, like I mentioned, moon represents the subconscious mind, which carries all the mental impressions from your childhood, or if you say the past life incarnations as well. But we can't access it. So, nakshatras can't give the whole concept, but it can give a lot of it can throw a lot of light into it. Similarly, one will be aware of their personal strengths or weakness or their behavioral patterns through the study of nakshatras. And they will also be able to find which areas are favorable for their success and how will they attain fulfillment. Because happiness has a lot to do with the mind. And if you know what truly inspires you and brings fulfillment, you would be really successful in that. And yeah, moon has also to do with manifestation because what we think, mind is also known as kalpa vriksha sometimes, because what we think and what we desire is something that we manifest in future. So if you can control your mind, or if you know what your mind wants, you can direct how you manifest things. And this is why there has been a lot of studies regarding this in terms of Vimshotri Dashas, what we say is grahas and stuff. So they influence your mind. Grahas influence your mind during that dasha. And that is why during certain dashas, people are very happy. There are certain dashas which can be stressful on your mind. And by understanding this, uh, you can handle your life better. So it's a way of, it's a guide. Jyotish is a guide. It's a study of light, and light guides you through your difficulties and your good times, and it helps you to make the right choices. Now, decoding nakshatra in the modern context. So this is another interesting part of nakshatras. So when the books were written about Vedic astrology, they were written by sages at a very olden time, and in the current situation, a lot has changed. So we have to interpret the old sciences in the modern context and see how they're manifesting in the modern world, because they are manifesting very differently. And some interesting discoveries have been made. For example, there is a very famous astrologer called Claire Nakti, and she has discovered the correlation of beauty and nakshatras, and how physical appearances are controlled by your Janma nakshatra or the moon nakshatra. For example, this is a screenshot of a tweet that I had sent, and you see the celebrities Nina Dobrev and Victoria Justice, and both are Shravana moon nakshatra. And if you see, they are so similar in terms of facial appearance. And this goes on to show that people with same nakshatras look very similar. And they also have similar personalities or similar behavioral traits. And it's really fascinating. We'll go for another examples in the further slides to understand how it is. And it is a tool for self-awareness and a roadmap for one's life. So nakshatras can really bring in a lot of deep understanding into your own personality. And it is a roadmap. I have termed it as a roadmap because some people prefer not to use a map while navigating their life, because they want to learn from their own experiences. And when they use nakshatras or Vedic astrology, they can use it as a roadmap to understand how their life is going to unfold and what are the best choices for them. And as I've discussed earlier, the modern international astrologers are taking deep interest in decoding nakshatras. We have astrologers like Vic Tikara. We have a very famous Indian astrologer like Sanjay Rath, who's taking this subject and making it modern and relatable for the younger audiences, and is spreading the knowledge globally. Now, here are further examples of nakshatras and celebrity lookalikes. So we have here Shravana Moon Audrey, who is an international celebrity, Hollywood celebrity, and we have Shravana Ascendant Alia Bhatt, and we can see the resemblance in their facial features. And we have another example here, Swati Moon Deepika Padukone and Swati Moon Irina, and both were famous supermodels. Deepika is now, of course, a famous Bollywood celebrity. And again, you see the similarities in facial structures, and people often compare them. But it's just not limited to physical attributes. Nakshatras also, you will find people from the same nakshatras to be in the same careers as well. Like here we have the example of Uttara Bhadrapada Moon, Steve Jobs and Bill Gates, and both were considered rivals because they were famous in the same profession, and both were into digital technology, and they revolutionized that area. So people with same nakshatras generally have same interests. Like you would see a lot of artists with Satabisha nakshatras. It is the way they think. Satabishas love to correlate a lot of subjects together. So you will often find people who think alike are in the same profession. And sometimes when people think alike, they also look alike. It's not very, people who look alike may not think alike, but people who think alike start to look alike. And that's how the nakshatra and the psyche, the physical appearance, the way they manifest, they all kind of interlink. So this is my addresses. I'm available on Twitter. I have a blog called Fashion Astrology, and this is the link to it. And my book is available internationally and nationally, and it ships to most places. So that's about it. And if we have any questions, we can discuss it now.
Thank you, Shristi ji. It was a beautiful presentation. I wondered,
Yes.
I've heard this. I'm nowhere anywhere as knowledgeable as you, but I've heard that, the time of birth is so crucial. Other than the factors you mentioned, Kala, but broadly, the time of birth is essential. So, how did you find out about the celebrities and stuff? Because that is a piece of information you wouldn't have been privy to, right?
That's right. And that's a wonderful question that you have. So generally, birth time can vary. That's true. But when it comes to the nakshatras, moon is usually in one nakshatra for a day. Like I mentioned, like it takes 27 days to revolve around the earth. So birth time will help us in getting the ascendant and the entire chart. But when it comes to the nakshatras or the moon signs or the sun signs, they are same for people who are born on the same day. That is why it is easier to find the moon sign and the nakshatras of celebrities. And people who are born in same nakshatras, like I mentioned, they have similar facial features or they carry similar traits. And that is why nakshatras are so used now by a lot of international astrologers to refine their predictions. In fact, another interesting point that I want to touch is that uh, directors or writers with same nakshatras, they also make movies or write books that are related to that concept. For example, the Uttara Bhadrapada nakshatra is related to time travel, similar to Revati. They are side by side. So in Netflix, there was a series called Dark, and in that series, the writer and the director both had Uttara Bhadrapada nakshatras. So we can see how interlinked they are. And to find someone's moon nakshatra is not very difficult. You don't need accurate birth time for that. You just need to have their accurate birth date. And for most celebrities, their birth dates are available in Wikipedia. And there's also other astrology websites who are actively seeking the birth charts of celebrities and popular people to find out their astrological charts.
I just again, I'm talking from a perspective of a complete layperson, so I might sound really muddled. I'm asking you for clarification. That's why is when you talk about nakshatra, it sounds like that is the broader theme within which then you have the jataka that we make. Is that right, or am I completely misunderstanding this?
So let's get into jataka. So when we need jataka of some person, we need the birth date and the birth time. And let's say someone is born on a Sunday at 6:30. So this person, since the sun is rising, so rising, we draw a chart from the ascendant, and ascendant represents the horizon. So since sun is rising, the person will have sun in the ascendant. Then we'll also see where is the sun's place, which constellation the sun is in. So we'll check uh, the relative placement of sun with comparison to earth and the constellation that it is in. And if he is born in the Aries constellation, then he will have Aries sunshine. Then we'll check the position of moon. And in case of moon, we also check the zodiac sign and we check the nakshatras, because nakshatras are the finer divisions of zodiac signs. So let's say if this person who's born on a particular date is having moon in the Taurus, so we'll say that he has Taurus moon and Aries sun. And in that Taurus moon, Taurus has 2.5 nakshatras. So this person can be a Rohini Taurus moon or a Pritika Taurus moon, depending on the birth time, or it actually depends on the date mostly, on which lunar mansion that moon is in. Then we also go in to check all the grahas, the Rahu that I explained, the nodes of the moon, Rahu, Ketu. We go on to understand where is his Mercury placed, where is Mars placed, Venus, Saturn, and Jupiter. So in Vedic system, we don't consider outer planets so much. It is mostly the inner planets and Jupiter and Saturn. So nakshatras are used mostly for moon because they are lunar mansions, and they are also used sometimes for other grahas as well, but primarily it is used for moons. And there is a very interesting story I wanted to share. It is believed that moon, who's Chandra Dev, had 27 wives, and the names of 27 wives were the 27 nakshatras, and they were daughters of the um, the famous Indian king called Daksha Prajapati. And Moon's favorite wife was Rohini, and Rohini is also a nakshatra. And it has been seen that Moon kind of slows over its rotation, revolution around the Earth when it is closer to Rohini nakshatra. So that is why Rohini is the favorite wife of Moon, or the favorite nakshatra where Moon gets exalted. So again, like stories related to nakshatras, final divisions of zodiac signs. So Jataka is the main thing. It's the bigger part, and nakshatras and zodiac signs come within it. It's the subset of that. Jataka is the universal set.
Good evening, Shashiji. First of all, compliments that you have written a book on such an intricate topic. Intricate because it's very confusing for an outsider, because so many factors to to kind of correlate and then draw conclusions. Sincere compliments. Sincere compliments. In fact, you answered one of the questions which I always had on my mind about why twins have different behavior patterns or life trajectory, and it was a very dear question for me because I myself have twin sons. So you partially answered, but something which is interrelated with that is that today's medical world goes for the timing of the birth is decided by the doctor as to what time to cut open and get the baby out. So in such that human factor, which could be unnatural from your your pair of lens.
Yes, I get your question. So basically, that's a very interesting question, and a lot of clients who come to me often have this question on their mind, that what if I'm a C-section baby? I'm not someone who's born out of natural delivery. Then how will we consider the charts? So the thing is, we strongly believe that it is predestined. Like if somebody is supposed to be born and have a life like that, they are going to be born exactly on the date they're supposed to match the destiny. And there is also a conception chart which is done sometimes. So before parents go for their children, they sometimes ask astrologers that which is the best muhurat for conception for our child. So sometimes astrologers, especially in the olden days, were so competent that if they have the birth chart, they can also go back and calculate the conception time, and they can do a conception chart, which is that matter is still being researched. It's kind of lost. We are kind of reviving that, but that is also done. And sometimes that pre-deciding part, yes. So if the person is supposed to have a life like that, he is going to be born at that particular time and date, because that's how the destiny works. And sometimes it is also seen that if doctors are like having a date on their mind, like this is the perfect date for birth, and children are born before that too. And it's because they're not supposed to be born on that date. They're supposed to be born some previous date. So when someone is predestined and they have a fixed date to be born, so if they're born on that date, then that chart will be considered. If someone who's born earlier than the date that the doctor has decided, then the date he is born will be considered, and not the date which the doctor has decided. Because the destiny shows that the child has to be born with that chart. That is why he was born before the time. Like sometimes children are born in 7 months or 6 months. So the day they are born, the time they are born is to be noted, and that is the right chart. And sometimes people also come to us for birth time rectification, and that is done based on the life events. Even if you don't have the accurate birth date or time, if you go to a very competent astrologer, they can draw a chart and correct it based on your life events to find your accurate birth time and birth date.
This reverse calculation part which you mentioned is a very interesting thing.
Yes.
One small subsidiary question. Can I mean, it's not really a question but a perspective. Can I share? I mean, if everything has to happen as per destiny, and I think I had asked this question on the Twitter also a few days ago, that consulting astrologers or taking Jyotishi remedies, is it somehow against as if one is trying to run away from the complications of the life and avoid doing the purushartha which is supposed to be done by him? I mean, is it?
Yes, that's a very valid and a very beautiful question, because sometimes when people come to astrologers, there are different things which happen. Sometimes they don't get the right prediction. Sometimes even if they get the right prediction and the remedies, they don't do the remedies as it's supposed to be. And sometimes even going to astrologers doesn't change their life. This is because they are not destined to reverse their karmas. To reverse their karmas, uh, in earlier days, astrologers were considered to be gurus because it was practiced by sages or people who are extremely intelligent and they are well versed in shastras and they understand the whole karmic theory. So when they are going to a guru and they are asking them to help them change karmas, if it is only there in their bhagya. So bhagya also comes, bhagya is the fortune, it's the bag of the merit that somebody has. And if they have the good merit or the punya to receive knowledge from a guru and change their karmas, then they will be able to do it. So that free will that most people ask astrologers, how much is destiny and how much is free will? The free will is also part of the destiny, because how much free will someone has is also pre-decided. Like there's a very beautiful quote that in some pages uh, God has not written your destiny. He has left the page blank because He wants you to write your own destiny. You have some choices in your life. Everything is, although it is predestined, but there is also free will. And what we call destiny is actually based on karmas. What we have done karmas over our past generations or past incarnation is what is manifesting as destiny. So in a way, everything that we think, that I have discussed earlier, the mind is kalpavriksha, everything that we think and perceive is manifesting as destiny. And depending on karmas, we get results. And if someone goes to an astrologer and wants to change his destiny, that is nothing wrong. But that person really can't change his destiny. It is really determined by how much he's allowed to change. Depends on the punya, how much punya he has to change his destiny. If he's lucky enough to change his destiny, he can. Like for example, if I give before Mahabharat, Lord Krishna had gone to Duryodhan for a peace pact. He's like, let's avoid this war. It will kill a lot of people. You have this chance to, change your destiny. You don't have to die early. You don't have to have this war. But Duryodhan, because he was not supposed to avoid the war, he was under some influence, or he was in his ego, that he's like, no, I will not revert the war. So he did not choose it. And that's what his destiny was. There was a free will given to him, but he chose not to use it. So remedies will only work if it is meant to be.
My question is, within the Vedic parameter, do we have different theories, different traditions? Why I'm asking is because, see, for an example, I'm from Odisha. Here, what I observed is the way astrologer use for, also personal experiences that I got different advice from different astrologers from different locations. That's why I'm asking is, do they are entirely different or they have any common thread? I believe you got my question.
Yes. So the thing is, this subject is a science. At least it's a science from a Vedic perspective. So science can't have different definition. It has a particular definition. But the problem is different astrologers have different depth and different understanding of the subject. And most of them have different perception about how to approach the problem. Like when you go to a doctor, some doctors might say that you take the medicine. Some might say, let's operate the thing. So astrology is given by the sages. It's not even an invention, it's a discovery. They have discovered that, so when certain celestial planets are there, certain positions are there, it manifests in so and so. So if you go to different astrologers and they are saying different things, you have to find out that who has the most competence, who's the most competent, and whose predictions are actually manifesting in real life or is accurate. Because sometimes the subject is so deep, especially astrology is so deep, that you need someone who has the perception or depth to understand it and analyze your chart. If you go to somebody who's very well read and has a lot of experience, he can give you a very good prediction, or he can give you very accurate. And you have to see that what is matching you in your life. What manifests in your life is the reality, and that is the correct prediction.
Actually, I have two questions. The first you actually partially answered while you were addressing Arvindji, that this confusion between what is predestined and what is karma. So
Yes.
the karma that we pay for is not only the ones that we have in our previous life, but also in the present life. So is it
Yes.
that whatever sins or whatever wrong we do in this life, we will pay for it only in the next life? Because I think we tend to do it in this life as well, right? So how does that find its place in our kundali or in our destiny?
Yes, that's a very good question. So sometimes there are different points that I have to touch. So sometimes we do prashna, and prashna is done immediately at it's no, you don't take into the person's birth date or birth time. You do a prashna chart right according to the position of planets at this time, and then you answer whatever questions you have. So prashna sometimes shows the current state that you are in. If you, let's say you had some bad karmas from your past life, but you have already mitigated them because you are actively working on your spiritual growth, that sometimes shows in the prashna chart. And astrology, like I said, is a roadmap. It can show your destiny. It can also show how much you can change your past life karmas with your punya karmas. And therefore, spirituality is highly recommended. Because when people do mantras, when they do religious practices, a lot of religious practices are actually astrological remedies, which most people don't know. And it goes on like the religious thing that goes on within families. It is done because people have seen that by doing such activities, the lives are changing. So that is there. And I think it is recommended to always do good karma. One should always do karma which they think is best. And they should also think that whatever I'm doing today to someone will come back to me in this life or the next life. Now, whether it will come to me in this life or next life, yes, that can also be seen in the charts, because there are certain placements which show that whatever you do will be immediately manifesting in your life. Like some people do get the results quickly of their actions, and some people don't get it in this life, maybe because they have a lot of punya and they have to burn that punya, or they are not in that dasha where they will get the results of their karma in this life. So they might get it in the next life. That is also seen from charts. But that's a very deep concept again, to see which placements will see show that, like that is also seen from the Saturn's placement. Like some people get immediate results of what they do, and some people get it in next life. But here again, I'll quote what Krishna said, that the fruits of the actions are actually decided by the God. And astrology is a divine subject because it shows how it manifests. But the ultimate thing is always residing with the God. It's God's will. If the destiny and the God's will combine, then whatever has to manifest will manifest. Yes. And I think that's the first question, right?
Yes. My second question is, I think in a in a very normal and a very cosmopolitan middle class Hindu family, much of our understanding about such things either come from pop culture or from family traditions that have been just going on without knowing why exactly we do them. So oftentimes we were told that whatever our destiny is, it can't even be controlled by God, because we have to pay for it, even when we will be repenting for it, or we have to prove that we have done some good karma in order to mitigate the same. But at the same time, like you said, if Krishna knew what was written in the destiny of Duryodhan, why even propose something like that to him?
That's the whole thing. It's a play. And even when he was telling Arjuna, who was describing about Bhagavad Gita during Mahabharata, he told that already this war is over and you have won. You just have to play along and do your part. So free will was there, but it was also predestined, because that's the thing. That's the influence of grahas. When you say grahas, it grabs your mind. But if you are highly focused on spirituality and You are, it again depends on God. If God wants, then he can help you change your karmas. Like there was a story of Padmini, and she was an Apsara, and she was cursed by some sages to be infertile in her next life. And when she was born in the next life, she was very upset, and she always prayed to God. So to Krishna, and he gave her a child that is not her own, it was an adopted child. So Krishna's own son Pradyumna was abducted, and it was thrown into the he was thrown into the sea, and fish gulped it, and later the child was found out by Padmini. And if you see, she was destined not to have children, but because it was God's will, and he tried to mitigate the curse that she had. So it really depends on him. That is why most astrological remedies that we use in Vedic astrology is also to do with God, and to give to certain people, and do donations or do good karmas. So by doing good karmas, a lot of the bad karmas can be cancelled. But to how much or what degree it will be cancelled, that is another subject again.
When you say that Bhagwan decides, I remember this in the Mahabharata, it's mentioned that Duryodhan was informed by Gandhari, his mother, that if I open my eyes and I look at you, without any clothes, then your whole body will become of Vajra. So
Yes.
he's going there, and then he's interjected by Sri Krishna, and he asks him to cover up. And that's exactly the part which gets torn apart. So yes, Bhagwan does interject.
Yes, he does. Yes.
The divine aspect is always there. And
Yes.
as if Gandhari's curse also was something that he wanted, because he had to leave from here.
Well, Shrishti, I understand that there are, I mean, if I'll go to different astrologers, definitely they'll give me different advice. Though my question is, are there different schools of Vedic astrology? In Vedic philosophy itself, we have Dvaitavada, Advaitavada, like that only. Are there different school of Vedic astrology? Why I'm asking is because, for an example, in most of the part of our country, for matchmaking, they do 36 gun, 36 gun wala system. And then again, here in Eastern India, they do Dasa Vedaka, which is 10 nature. And then South, I understand it is a bit different. So that's why I'm asking, are there different tradition, different school of Vedic astrology, or they all are more or less same?
No, there are different schools of astrologies. Like there is Nadi astrology, there is Gemini astrology, and there is Parashari astrology. And what the systems that you talk about, generally what happens is that there are families who are devoted to astrology, and sometimes they discover some secret techniques, or they discover some secret methods to predict well, and it continues in their lineage. And therefore, although the basic is same, because everyone reads Brihad Parasara Hora Shastra or Gemini astrology, they also develop their own methods. Like every astrologer has their own set of techniques which they use. And Nadi astrology is very different. The way they calculate and the systems, the way they draw charts. Yes, there are different systems within Vedic astrology as well.
I just had a comment because Arvindji mentioned about karma. And
Yes.
from my little knowledge, I just wanted to add a few things. Shrishiji explained beautifully, but my understanding of karma is it's not static, it's dynamic. So
Yes,
because
yes.
we have been doing so much karma, we have created certain samskaras with which we have taken birth. But during our lifetime, we are continuing to do karmas. Most of it we do it subconsciously, unfortunately, because we are not
Yes.
spiritually creating a channel for us to become more aware. But
Yes.
we are doing so much karma, we are always doing it, whether we realize or not. So we are
Yes.
continuously changing that chemical reaction of pehle se jo samskara aaya, and what is getting added to it is becoming this new combination every moment that we are living. So this destiny is coming from before, but at the same time, we are always acting on a free will without our knowledge.
Yes.
It's just about creating the awareness. And then the other points that she brought up about when it's the right time, it'll come to fruition, definitely. But that
Yes.
doesn't stop us from acting on the remedies. So if we are going through difficulties, we go to someone, and let's say they are not of the caliber of rishis who know what's the right
Yes.
time, even if they don't know, we can apply those things and we can purify ourselves. And baki jo karm karo, phal ki ichha na karo kind of fits in with that concept as well. It's a bit like you have earned a lot of money over 30 years of your career. You have a huge savings, but that doesn't stop you from having a job and earning an income because you have savings. You can still keep having a job, earning income, and how much income you have and expenditure you have will affect your net savings. So karma is like that. We can always keep acting on it in our present life. There is no need to stop. In fact, I find that the most hopeful thing about our knowledge systems is never despair, because at the end of the day, every moment is a present moment when you can act. You can choose to act consciously. You can change on whoever you were before and improve even marginally compared to who you were before, but it's still an improvement. And that's hope. And it's never in your life that you are just from beginning to, let's say I live till I'm 90, from 0 to 90, it's going to be the same destiny. No, depends on what I do. That chemical combination will result in something different. So that's my understanding of how free will, destiny, and karma work, and how the remedies that are being suggested are not coming in the way of destiny. They are just means to help you, and you work on it as much as you can. Agar nahi hona hai at that time, phalna nahi hai, then you won't be able to put all the effort, but you put what you can. And jab phalna hoga, wo phal ke aayega, but if you keep your eye on the goal all the time, you will miss the process. And the whole crux of our spiritual knowledge lies in the process and the path. So once we work on the spiritual side and we focus on the path, goal aayega. In fact, once you become so focused on the path and concentrated with the dhyana ke, from a dhyan mentality, you'll forget about the goal even, because you'll be so immersed in learning about yourself and the dynamic that's changing with your karmas that, your focus will come off the goal anyway. So it's a great, I don't know, it's just a wonderful knowledge system we have. I'm just too passionate. Sorry, and thank you for entertaining my opinion. I'm just an ordinary person, so I really appreciate it. Thank you.
No, I resonate with what you say. And that's why I often say that Vedic astrology, or what we call Jyotish, is not a standalone subject. It is connected with all our scriptures. It is connected with science. It is connected with Ayurveda, and everything comes together, and that's how it manifests. It's never one thing. It's never in isolation. And I think you explained the whole karma and free will theory very well, because that is often debated within astrologers as well. We debate that how much is free will and how much is destiny. But we should not forget that everything that has come into existence is due to karma. So karma is one of the most important aspects. Even in astrology, there are things that show that if you do good karmas, you can change your destiny. And we also say that it's better to be a karma bhogi than it's better to be a karma yogi than a janma bhogi. So yes, I think with that we can conclude the session today. I mean, that would be my final statement.